Hey everybody, it's Kairos, and today we'll be walking you through the 12 hardest champs to master in Season 12. Before we get started, there are over 150 champions in the game, so to narrow this list down to just 12 is pretty damn hard. And no, Aurelion Sol will not be on the list, because everybody knows about him already. And to start us off in the number 12 spot, we have Yuumi. Nah, I'm just kidding. Don't worry, we're actually going to give this spot to Yasuo. We couldn't get through this video without mentioning one half of the Terrible Twins. Now Yasuo is pretty obvious as to what he does. Charge your Q, land your Q, use your R, and GG. When you put it like that, he sounds fairly simple. However, playing Yasuo effectively and actually carrying games with him is a much harder task. You have a ton of things to think about. The consistent use of your E, the relentless hits of your Q, and the weaving in of auto attacks to keep your DPS high while you dodge incoming skill shots, trades, and all kinds of abilities. The perfect use of your wind wall also takes some getting used to. Not only can it win duels and save your life, but it can ultimately change the course of the entire game if you utilize it well in teamfights. So that's Yasuo's kit kind of explained, but the whole other element of Yasuo being hard to master comes on how to win games with him. Understanding how to play him in all different situations and just not dying over and over like all the Yasuos in my games do. No, seriously, this has been happening for almost a decade. Anyway, whether it's split pushing and taking on multiple enemies, team fighting, or flanking, Yasuo's individual decision making and playstyles alongside his mechanics definitely make him a worthy contender for this list. Number 11 is going to be given to Lee Sin. There's a reason why this champion always stays relevant in high elo, no matter what other champions are dominating the jungle. Lee Sin has usually been in the top tier of junglers in almost every season in high elo because he's just so rewarding if you have the right skills to play him. Lee Sin has probably one of the highest skill ceilings in the game, and a lot of that is due to his creative kit. There are a crazy amount of combos, tips, and tricks that you just keep learning, no matter how many mastery points you've got on him, and that alone is enough reason for him to be on this list. Then you add all the different ways to influence the games, from kicking an enemy AD carry into your team and bursting them down, to landing a 5-man kick flash in a clutch team fight, or diving into Dragon Pit and stealing that Elder in a 50-minute game. Lee Sin is definitely one of the most rewarding champions in the game to master, and you can have a ton of fun along the way too. In the number 10 spot, we have Kalista, and she is definitely not one of the most popular champions in the game for Season 12, but players who have mastered her are still giving bot laners nightmares anyway. Kalista has one of the most unique playstyles and kits out of any bot laner. First of all, the fact that every single auto attack is a dash, and then combine that with those spears and double jumps, you've got a super high mechanically intensive champion already. If that wasn't enough, the rest of her kit is also very pilot dependent. Her ultimate can save lives and win teamfights with good use, her rend can be used to burst even the tankiest of enemies or objectives, and the reset mechanic also becomes a huge part of her efficiency and effectiveness throughout the game. There are limitless things you can do with Kalista, and it just shows because even when she's in a bad spot, a Kalista master can still make her relevant and top tier. And in the number 9 spot, we have Bard. Bard is love, Bard is life. That's all we have to say. We'll see you in the next video. Only joking, because Bard is just an absolutely amazing support, and funnily enough, he actually gets banned out fairly often in high elo because of how hard he can carry when played by the right person. Bard's kit is pretty simple, and he is quite basic and easy to learn, but mastering him is an entirely different ballgame. Bard's abilities all have unique ways of using them that all take a lot of time to get perfect. His Q has all sorts of angles and width can be abused if you know how. His E has various different wall lengths and uses, and his ultimate is either the best ability in the game or completely useless. Bard is also one of the best roaming supports in the game, and he's pretty low impact in lane, meaning this whole roaming playstyle takes some serious practice as well. If you've ever seen a Bard main in action, you'll understand how crazy the limits of this champion are. So if you haven't tried learning him properly, now's the time to give it a shot. Filling out the number 8 position, we have Gangplank, the champion that you never see in your games, but when you do, he solo carries and gets 5-man double barrels that win the game in one team fight. Yes, Gangplank is 100% up there with the big boys when it comes to the time investment required to master him properly. The first thing you have to master is how to play the lane phase with the trading, dueling, and sustaining power farming so that you can scale quicker and more efficiently. The second thing you have to master is his kit. The combos, the barrels, the ultimates, the cleanses, and stringing these all together without getting one shot because you're actually pretty fragile. The final thing you have to learn is how to actually teamfight and influence games with this champ. He's a pretty squishy carry with a ridiculous amount of damage, but he's melee and has no mobility, so it's not as obvious as someone like Tryndamere. Gangplank really does take some practice, but when it clicks and you become a Gangplank one-trick, you're going to without a doubt see the rewards in your ranked games. The 7th position is going to be Zoe. Now, we've all been terrorized and hard slapped by Zoe one trick before, and let's be honest, it's not a pleasant experience. Zoe seems to have a gazillion items, summoner spells, and it feels like her cooldowns are always up. The fact is though, Zoe is one of the most unique mages in the game. Her kit is based all around pick potential and bursting down specific rotating or overextending targets. And if you do get hit by that sleepy bubble of doom, all you can do is sit there and wait for your inevitable death. Zoe is not only hard to master, but she's also pretty hard to learn when you first pick her up. If you haven't played her before, I would highly recommend stringing together a few games so you can really understand how she works and how to play against her. Zoe is for sure a great champion to master, and at the moment, no one is really playing her, so it's a great time to spam her and get as good as you can with her. Rengar is going to take that number 6 spot, and what a beast of a champion he is. Every single jungler that plays League of Legends thinks they can play this guy, and for the majority, it's unfortunately not true. Rengar is not only highly intensive in his combos and mechanics, but arguably has one of the most unique ways to play and win games. A lot of people argue, why would you risk playing Rengar, who requires so much practice to pull off, when you can just play Trundle and face roll by right clicking? Well, it's because ultimately Rengar is going to be far more rewarding and his ceiling is much higher, because you aren't limiting yourself and your effectiveness. Rengar's ability to walk around the map, one-shot whoever he sees, and constantly dart in and out of fights around brushes make him almost impossible to shut down. If you can learn Rengar's kit and learn how to influence games and carry with him, you're going to without a doubt see a real increase in your LP. But don't be surprised if it takes a while to get used to. Since her release, Qiyana has always been a champion that you're terrified of if you're facing off against a one-trick. Qiyana's burst potential with her quick and flashy combo is so fast that before you even know it, your health bar is gone and you're now best friends with the shopkeeper. So Qiyana is probably the most obvious one on this list. She's all about flashy combos and one-shotting her enemies and giving no real chance for counterplay. Just in her basic kit, there are tons of things to learn and master. It starts with her elements. When is it worth it to get the river element for the root? When do you need the damage from terrain? Or when do you need to spam that stealth brush instead? This is a huge part of mastering Qiyana and understanding which element is best for each situation. Then we've got her ultimate. Qiyana's ult is an amazing ability that can genuinely win games by itself. Whether it's used only on one target in a duel to delete them from play, or lighting up a beautiful 5-man ultimate in Baron Pit to completely destroy the enemy team. Qiyana is both pretty difficult to learn and very difficult to master. Matchups, item spikes, limit testing, and plenty more. Back in the jungle now, and we have a champion that we don't see as often these days, but when we do, we forget just how strong she is. Taliyah. So ever since Taliyah was released, everyone already knew just how strong this champion can be with the right player behind her. Taliyah's playstyle is very unique and requires a lot of micromanagement. There are a ton of small things to consider when playing this champ. First, you've got to consistently use your Q and position yourself to maximize damage and avoid your worked ground. Then your W, which is a pretty hard skill shot to hit if you don't have other setup. When combined with your E, your W knockback deals a nutty amount of damage, but it's a lot easier said than done. Then you've also got Taliyah's ultimate, which is incredibly unique and it has plenty of different uses. Overall, the champion's kit is hard enough as it is, and then you've got to get used to the fact that you die in one hit. You are super squishy and easy to take down, meaning if you get too close or miss your combo once, you're probably going to be seeing gray. Taliyah is one of the most rewarding champions to play if you can perform with her. but for the most part, first time Talias are gonna hard int, so good luck. In the number 3 position, we've got Riven, and she has probably had a place on these lists since her release. Riven is the ultimate animation canceling, mechanically demanding masterpiece of a champion that's effectiveness is completely decided by her pilot. Riven's kit seems pretty basic initially. You spam your abilities, move around for free with no mana, and just auto attack as much as you can. However, there are an insane amount of combos that you can do to remove animation delay, to improve your DPS and burst, and to make yourself far more difficult to play against. Riven's combos don't stop with just her damage and her passive though, but they also grant her a ton of mobility and gap closing options. Riven mains need to learn all of the walls, turrets, terrain that they can Q3 over to gain extra distance to assassinate their enemies or to escape certain death. Riven really is one of the most creative champions in the game. If you like showing off and you love mastering champions with super high ceilings, Riven is easily the best one to go for. In the number 2 spot, we've got Azir, yet another very unique champion, this time back in the mid lane. Azir's a hyperscaling mage capable of destroying entire teams with his ultimate, flying around with his exceptional mobility, or dealing huge damage from miles away with his soldiers. Half of mastering Azir is honestly just learning how to survive in the early and mid game. Azir needs to farm beautifully so that he can even be considered relevant in the mid game, and it's all about learning how to maximize your gold income so that you can scale better. Macro aside though, Azir is very mechanically demanding. Instead of having normal abilities for damage, he controls his soldiers and relies on those to poke and burst down his enemies. Alongside that, you also have to worry about your own positioning and your own survival. Azir has tons of combos he can use to keep himself alive and benefit from his E-mobility, all of which require a lot of practice as well. Then comes Azir's ultimate, which is one of the most game-changing abilities in the game that completely turns teamfights and wins games by itself, or it could just be completely useless. There are so many reasons why Azir is a strong champ when mastered, but he's really not going to have the same impact when played by someone with less experience. So before we get to our number 1 pick, there's just a few honorable mentions we want to speak about. Sylas ultimates and Viego's possesses are obviously very complicated and require a ton of game knowledge. However, the rest of the champions kits are pretty simple. Orianna is also very difficult to micromanage, and her ult can be hard to execute, but she does get easier with a bit of practice, and Azir just seems way too much more unique and has such a lower play rate. Vayne, of course, was also very nearly on this list, but she lost out because honestly, we've just spoken about this champion so much recently with how much she's been dominating in Season 12. So, the moment you've all been waiting for. In our first position, we have Aphelios. The amount of times I have seen my teammates run into this champion when he's at 10% health and then he gets a double kill, honestly, people just have no idea how to play against him, and that's not too difficult to understand why. Aphelios is easily one of the most unique champions in the entire game, and that definitely plays a part as to why he's so hard to master. From learning the fundamentals and mechanics of this champ to mastering each weapon set in every situation. There's also understanding how to save or spend ammo to benefit your next weapon in the next fight, or how to maximize teamfight AoE damage in the spur of the moment. The list of reasons on why this champ is so difficult is limitless, but it all makes sense the more hours you put into him. Whilst your enemy support is sitting there scratching their head wondering how you just killed them from 2 screens away, you can get ready to 2v3 their jungler too with your close range healing and burst. Aphelios' kit diversity and versatility make him a top pick in those higher elos, and the opportunities this champ presents are endless. And that's going to wrap up our list of the 12 hardest champions to master in Season 12. Let us know in the comments what champ you're going to work to master this season. We hope you enjoyed the video, and we'll see you next time.